Hi, boys and girls. Today we're going to finish off Who Was Sacagawea by reading chapters 8 and 9. They're very short chapters. Chapter 8 is all about what became of Bird Woman. Says, and what became of the young Shoshone woman? Sacagawea had made one of the most remarkable journeys in American history. She had traveled 4,500 miles, carrying her baby on her back. Without her, the expedition might have failed. Yet, she wasn't paid 1 penny. For a while, Bird Woman, Pomp, and Charbonneau stayed at the Indian village in North Dakota. There, Charbonneau received a letter from Clark. Clark missed them. He missed Pomp most of all. Clark planned to settle in St. Louis. He wanted Charbonneau to move his family there too. Did Charbonneau want land for a farm near St. Louis? Did he want to start a small business? Clark would help him. But what Clark really wanted was to adopt Pomp. The captain wrote a letter to the couple. As to your little son, my boy Pomp, you well know my fondness for him. I once more tell you that if you will bring your son to me, I will educate him and treat him as my own child. Sacagawea, her husband, and Pomp eventually did go to St. Louis. In the autumn of 1810, Charbonneau bought a small farm from Clark. For 5 months, Bird Woman and Pomp lived there, but Charbonneau soon grew restless. The next spring, he took Sacagawea on a fur trading trip up the Missouri River. 6-year-old Pomp was left in St. Louis. He was cared for by William Clark and his wife, Julia. So this is William Clark. This is his wife, Julia, and this is just a famous picture or a drawing of Sacagawea and her son. Again, because there were no cameras and things at that time, there's not really an older picture or drawing of Pomp, because he's so infamously known as the son that was carried on her back as a baby. So he's about 6 years old now, and Clark and his wife are going to watch her. By late 1812, Bird Woman and Charbonneau were at a trading post in what is now South Dakota. Sacagawea died there on December 20th, 1812. So this is 2 years after she left Pomp with Clark. She had just given birth to a daughter named Lisette. The clerk at the fort recorded the sad news. This evening, the wife of Charbonneau, a snake woman, died of putrid fever. She was a good and the best woman in the fort, aged about 25 years. She left a fine infant girl. Clark took the baby girl, Lisette, too. He raised both of Sacagawea's children. Pomp became a well-known Western guide and trader. Later, he was the mayor of the Spanish town in California. What became of Lisette is not known. So, it's interesting. Clark became so fond of baby Pomp that he wanted to adopt Pomp, and then he also ended up adopting his sister later on as well. So Pomp was about 8 when his baby sister was born, so Clark and Julia helped raise these children, and Clark becomes a mayor in California. And Lisette, unfortunately, they don't know what happens to her. So chapter 9 is all about honoring Sacagawea. For nearly a century after the Lewis and Clark expedition, Sacagawea was largely forgotten. During the 1800s, Indians and whites fought many wars. White people did not want to honor any Native American. By 1900, the fighting had ended. So from 1800s to 1900, we're talking almost 100 years of fighting. The country was getting ready to celebrate the expedition's 100th anniversary. That was when Americans discovered Bird Woman. Suddenly, she became very well known. Sacagawea has had more landmarks named for her and memorials built in her honor than any other American woman. So you have to think about this. Lewis and Clark went on this expedition to explore the land and make maps for Thomas Jefferson. Do you think that do you think they went home and they credited Sacagawea? Oh, we met this Indian woman and she really helped us and thank God for her. Probably not. So until 100 years later, when they were most likely reading the journals, they didn't realize that Sacagawea even existed. So through reading the journals hundreds of years later, I'm guessing that's where they really learned about her and how important she truly was, and when they started to honor her. Idaho, Montana, Oregon, and Wyoming have mountains named for Sacagawea. Washington and North Dakota have lakes named after her. This is a statue in House Garden, Bismarck, North Dakota. So like where she had gotten married to Charbonneau. She also became a favorite subject of artists and writers, which is why we have so many sketches and drawings, even though we didn't really know what she looked like, where a lot of artists do their own interpretation. Nobody knows what she looked like, so artists have had to use their imaginations. A statue of her stands at the state capitol in Bismarck, North Dakota, which is the statue on the screen. A statue of Sacagawea and pomp will soon be placed in the U.S. Capitol building in Washington, D.C. As the 21st century approached, the U.S. Mint planned to issue a new dollar coin. Sacagawea would appear on its head's side. 23 artists sent in designs for the golden dollar. The Mint showed the final choices on its website. More than 120,000 Americans voted for their favorites by email. Many of them were school-aged children, just like you. The golden Sacagawea dollars came out in 2000. So this is already 20 years ago that this coin came out. It shows a young Indian woman carrying her baby. This coin begins a period of Lewis and Clark's celebrations. The years 2004 to 2006 will mark the expedition's 200th anniversary. Americans will honor the explorers for their historic journey to the sea, and they will remember the young Shoshone woman who helped them get there, Sacagawea. And that's the end of our story. I hope you enjoyed learning about the Lewis and Clark expedition and how we kind of explored the new land during the Louisiana Purchase and beyond. And I hope you learned a lot about the different Native American tribes and cultures and how this Native American woman in particular was very resourceful in knowing the land and the food available and helping them communicate to make their journey so successful. And just think about that. This is over 200 years ago that this all happened. And now our country is 3 times the size as it was before the Louisiana Purchase. So I hope you enjoyed. Bye, guys.